Up, everybody? It is Monday.
Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. You think about it, we rant about it. Listen to us live on Facebook.
David, you need another shot because I jumped the gun yet again. But what else is new? I'm excited again about this topic. Hey, everybody, I'm live from South Florida. David is live from Montreal, Quebec. And today we are going to discuss Nike. And I know David is a big sports fan and follows a lot of this stuff, but this has to deal with apparel, divesting, corporate imaging. David, tell me, what do you got?
Let me tell you, Stuart. I got to tell you, this is an interesting story that's come out about 2 weeks ago. Nike has decided and announced that it will cease selling merch in Israel. They decided that they were going to pull all the stuff out of the shelves. And then a week ago, they said, no, it's not that. We're still going to work with a couple of retailers, some of the American-based ones. But frankly, we're pulling all of it as of May of 2022. And the idea is we want you to go online and so on and so forth. It's part of a corporate decision. But the problem is the only country they did this to was Israel, number one. And number two, when pushed, they didn't say it wasn't a boycott. They kept saying it's a business decision. The BDSers, the people who are so happy, who are against Israel, are celebrating this decision, Stuart. They think this is wonderful. They're next Ben and Jerry's.
David, didn't Ben and Jerry's in July, Lever Corporation, use almost the identical language?
No, not quite, but
in
yeah.
July they did.
Right.
Well, it then grew into a boycott.
Well, what they said was they did it because of political reasons. They actually so much as said so. Now, according to Nike, and they're saying that they have a global strategy and they want to make clear at the marketplace of the future, and they want to serve Nike through their digital channels. They did this with Amazon. They ceased selling through Amazon, and they went ahead and went direct. And I understand that concept. But here's the problem. The statement, it was a policy and goals letter. That's what they called it. And it really reeked, like you said, of Ben and Jerry's. The same direction, the same philosophy, the same feeling. When questioned, though, Nike has yet to still say the words, this is not a boycott. They call it a business decision. Okay? And go ahead, Stuart. How do you compare this to Ben and Jerry's?
So as I'm quoting Ben and Jerry's, it was in the July statement, they said, this was inconsistent with our values to continue selling its ice cream in the West Bank. And that was their quote. Now, Nike has done something like, first of all, they always say we do it with all our heart. And no, that's not true. They're continuing, they want to drive. What they're saying is the goal is to drive customers, which are owned by the company's online store, or the better off premium experience to shoppers, according to Donahue. At the same time, it's allowing sales to continue just in a few major chains like Dick's and Foot Lockers in several locations in Israel. Nike is moving away from its distribution business, is still big news for independent Israeli retailers, as well as American counterparts who have said the Nike decision has forced them to move out of business. So Nike hasn't announced any plans to shutter its Israeli website, which lists a wide array of products still priced in shekels, or its 15 Nike stores in Israel. However, the issue is, it sounds a lot like we're softening up that we're going to do the same thing that Lever did. And, because they won't, a spokesperson won't answer the phone on the topic, which would clear it up in one call, going, no, we're not planning a boycott, but they don't want to do that.
But what's fascinating is, and this is the thing that really is irritating, is that the anti-Israel movement, if you will, is all jumping up for joy. They're posting all over the place on all of their social media that Nike is simply ceasing all sales in Israel, which is not fact. The problem I have is the term policy and goals letter. And I'll tell you, there are a few people who are really, really aggravated. And I really like, Senator Rick Scott of Florida, really wants to understand, is Nike really targeting Israeli businesses? Why is Nike not explaining how this is not an anti-Israel move? Because this is the first step towards a boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Now, we've seen what happened to Ben and Jerry's when they and Unilever when they decided to pick on a friend of the United States, right? Once you start boycotting a country, you have essentially going to be delisted in some 30 states. And Nike is, maybe you could say, okay, Nike doesn't feel like, but you want to know what? I'm going to tell you that this is a disgusting movement. If the woke culture continues to say this is the right way to go, we should boycott Israel, this is where I have this real big problem. Because Nike, who has been dealing with slave labor their entire, like they've been accused it, proven it, slammed about it, that doesn't matter. The fact that that the CEO is thrilled to be working in China, that China is the big market for them, and that Nike is the brand of China. And that's not a problem. Who cares about the Uyghur Muslims in China who are forced to work in labor camps? It seems to be that Nike, again, has, like Ben and Jerry's, has picked and chosen one country. And it's funny, on Friday we talked about it. Okay?
Well, Nike is buried. Listen, no different than Adidas, right? No different than Puma. I mean, Adidas backed out about a year or so ago from sponsoring the uniforms for the Israeli soccer team. I mean, Adidas did take that step, and they said it was a business decision. Nike is doing, very much the same thing. So, the bottom line is that we all know that the left, and a lot of their primary base are Jews around the world, including New York, who continue to vote for these people. They're anti-Israel every single day of the week, but
we're
you
talking
can
about
tell them
Nike.
that, and they just deny it.
But I'm saying that people are voting with their wallets. And when I see people who are, and again, if the woke culture, if Nikes of this world and the Ben and Jerry's of this world are really trying to affect change in the world, I understand that. But the inconsistency is you're picking in the wrong freaking, it's the wrong area to start picking on. It's a completely misguided thing to believe that, once again, it's the state of Israel that's causing these problems. The colonialist power that is Israel. If they've drunk the BDS Kool-Aid and Nike, I want Nike to come straight out, because I haven't found, as of 11 o'clock this morning, I have not found a single press release statement from Nike stating this isn't the boycott. They keep saying it's a business decision. Now, I know Starbucks withdrew out of Israel because they said they couldn't make a go out of it. I get it. I saw it happen. The business model didn't work. Come on. Where is it?
I'd like to find how they could say the business model of selling coffee didn't work in Israel, but works in every other country.
Because I'll tell you that Starbucks wants to sell one thing, and it doesn't match. By the way, it doesn't work in Israel, it doesn't work in Italy, it doesn't work in a lot of other markets. Starbucks withdrew from a lot of other countries. This wasn't just Israel. Okay, and it doesn't fit the model. And I'm sorry, what works in the US doesn't work in other places. But Israelis are major consumers of brand name products. Ask Pepsi, who was part of the boycott of Israel for decades. When they finally said, screw this Arab boycott, and sold in Israel, they sold like crazy. Israelis are major consumers. Nike is one of those brands that is hot to trot. Now, the sad part is that, once again, everything that's anti-Israel, okay, is viewed as a win for the anti-Israel movements, those BDSers, the J Streets of this world, who believe in in boycotting, divesting, sanctioning Israel. I don't understand Nike's position here. If the Nike so-called policy is we don't want to support the Israeli market, I don't understand it. There are many American, North American, and European chains doing exceptionally well in Israel. What's going on here? Is this if you would have called it a test market, I might have understood. But to do this unilateral message, I don't think so. I think there's a
Well,
real issue.
well, the American Jewish Committee, who's been very vocal about Ben and Jerry's, said in an email the organizing didn't believe Nike was going to boycott Israel because I think that was that organization's way of mentioning it in a strong way, going, look, if you consider
Ah,
this,
please,
you're going to get it. But Nike
please,
doesn't care.
please,
They don't
please.
care.
You know
Nike
what?
doesn't
I'm going
care
to tell
about
you.
anyone.
I'm going to tell you something. I've seen a lot of soft organizations who don't want to rattle the cage or whatever. I'm stressing the statement. If Nike is really not boycotting Israel, then you need to make that sentence say it,
I agree.
okay? Because Unilever fought Ben and Jerry's on this. Okay, they said they don't agree with the boycott. They don't agree with Ben and Jerry's at all. Okay, in this case, Nike has not come out and said in a clear cut statement that this is not a boycott. What they have done, unfortunately, is let the entire society decide on their own what to do. There are branding people and marketing people who believe that this decision wants to enforce the woke mentality. Watch the commercials that are happening with Nike. Watch all of these brands all fight to be the woke chosen, they are woke corporation. And part of proving your wokeness, if there's such a term, is to be doing things with this thing with Israel. With you know what, Stuart? I think you used a great line, right? What did you say about a duck?
Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and you know what? Lays an egg. And sometimes eggs can be rotten. And if you are from Nike and you're actually tuning into the tail end of this broadcast, I strongly suggest you revisit your decisions. Because if you follow the leader, and this leader particularly, you're going to find yourself woken out of business.
I like the way
That's
they said
also a
it.
new
I,
word.
I like the way that their statement was that Nike says they remain committed to serving Israeli consumers with the best of Nike product innovation through Nike Direct and local retail partners. What I clearly don't see is the statement, no, this is not a boycott. They need to make a statement like that because by this kind of ambiguity, you know what? You test this, the first step is this, and then the next step is to pull it out. Listen, the reason that they're not going to be the so-called local retail partners, Dick's and Foot Locker, those are American-based chains. Of course, they're not going to upset those two guys. But you're not far off on that end. Okay. I am very
Yeah, but
sorry.
also Nike can't dictate to a national retailer where it can and can't sell the product as much as it you might think. And Dick's is not a company that would be involved in a boycott or making it to withdraw. I can't speak to Foot Locker
I can't
because
either.
Dick's is on the record as being a very more neutral to right corporation, and I don't think they would be involved in this. They tried their best
I just
both
I
early and
think
often.
that, listen, there's no doubt that they're not going to rattle those partners. What I'm saying here is that at the end of the day, this notion of corporations wanting to prove that they are doing the right thing and picking this as the subject, they picked the wrong subject. Unless you want to prove that you are like, listen, if you were opposed to the Israeli government's policy and you think that boycotting and divesting and sanctioning them is the way to go, okay, then you understand that there's another aspect to it, which you don't have access. You can't have it both ways. Okay, you can't show on one side that you're this woke company, and on the other side, you're going to take the benefits that come out of the state of Israel, which have been listed and documented on many in different ways. I'm sorry, Nike, be overt with it. Ben and Jerry's, regardless of the fact that we hate their decision, prove that they don't agree, and they pulled all of their sales out of Israel, and that's their decision. Great. Now I will decide with my wallet whether or not I'm going to buy Ben and Jerry's, which I won't. Nike, I got news for you. Until you tell me otherwise, I'm not buying your merchandise. I will not support you, and I hope others will not support you, because this is what we do. We vote with our wallet. And if you're going to go ahead and decide that this is going to be no, it's not really a boycott, but it really is a boycott. But you know what? I hope your sales go down. I hope, like Ben and Jerry's, that different state governments are going to nail you. Stuart, we've reached
David,
that quarter hour.
we reached our quarter hour. So,
Yeah.
what do we got on deck for Wednesday, David?
Oh my God, Wednesday, I got to tell you, this was the funniest thing. The state of California is forcing retailers like toy stores to have gender neutral merchandise. The state of California is forcing retailers to do this. Forget about the idea about whether you should have gender or not. In what world does Governor Newsom and his crazy government people have the right to dictate that? We'll talk about that on Wednesday.
Yep. So, on that note, David,
Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy your week. Stay well. Stay
see you
safe.
on